What's up, people? Welcome to another weekly edition of the Black and Gold Hour podcast. It's your host, Merv. And today I have a very special guest within the Who Dat Nation community. He's been covering the Saints and NFL news for more than 10 years. He's been on radio shows, national and local shows. And today he's coming in as the Saints News Network lead writer and reporter. Today I have with me John Hendrix. How you doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing good. I appreciate you having me on.
No. So honestly, I've been following you for as long as I've had a Twitter. You're updating us on Saints news, giving us Saints stories to think about each week. So I thank you and I really appreciate you coming on. But since we've been following you for so long and you've been creating content surrounding the New Orleans Saints for years, I want to ask you, like how I always ask the reporters that come on the show, how did you get into it and what made you start covering news surrounding the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, so it's crazy in a way. I've always been a football fan, right? And don't let my young facade mislead you. I'm actually 37, so I'm actually the old guy by some standards. But, you know, I was born in the 80s. I fell in love with football a long time ago. My grandfather, some of my fondest memories, he would always record old Super Bowls on VHS, which obviously can blow some people's minds, but back then that's how you had to do it. And so I would sit there, and every time I go there, I'd watch, things like Super Bowl 20 when the Bears and Patriots, the 85 Bears. I'd watch Rams and Steelers from the 70s, the Cowboys and Steelers from the 70s, and just all these different games. And Raiders, Marcus Allen running for long touchdown, John Riggins, just all these guys, the epitome of football back then, right? And so it carried over to the 90s, and I've always had a passion for football. I used to be the guy, I guess the Rain Man or the nerd. I mean, you asked me who the starting lineup was for the 92 Cowboys or the Saints back then and stuff like that. I could probably tell you most all the guys who the starting quarterbacks were. I used to jot down stats and notes and all this stuff. It was just football craziness, for me. And so look, I say that all to say, obviously followed the Saints for forever and, lived through the interesting days back then and now, obviously. And so back after 2011 season, when they lost to the 49ers, that's when I started kind of putting pen to paper, because I knew, a lot of fans believe, and I believe it to this day, that could have been the second Super Bowl ring. That should have been the second Super Bowl ring for the Saints. Right. And, after that, I'd always hung out in settings with guys, and they're like, man, you got a lot to say about football, and you got really good takes for the most part, and it seems like you come off where you're not really biased and stuff, and you can see it. So I ended up, pursuing that. I did a Google blog spot back in the day. It was called First and Five. And so I ended up doing that for a while. And then actually a little twist at where I was working at the time, a guy that wrote for a site, it's Who Dat Dish, actually approached me and said, hey, look, we're looking for content creators and stuff, why don't you check it out? And so I did. A couple months later, Chris Rowling, he's now with Bleacher Report, but at the time he's like, hey, why don't you be the co-editor or co-managing editor? And, then I ended up getting the site by myself. So I ran Who Dat Dish for about 3.5 years. And then after that, I went to SB Nation and ran Canal Street Chronicles for, 3 years and stuff. And so during that time, I'll never forget, it was 2014. We were at an event for Jonathan Vilma, when he was doing the Morton Steakhouse thing that they used to do all the time. And so we were talking with him, and I think Ramon was one of the guys. He told me, he's like, man, you're in an interesting spot because, back in 2014, the blog setting, the blog world was kind of like up and coming back then, right? It was almost unheard of to be in the same space as guys that are writing for the newspaper. And, I never forget, he's like, man, this is the future about what you guys are doing and everything that's going on. And so, he was really inspiring, and I've had some really good guys along the way and ladies along the way that have really been encouraging. But, that kind of how it started. It led to other open doors, being on TV, being on radio, and doing different things for different publications. I did some stuff for a newspaper, Biloxi Sun Herald. I did stuff for WDSU. I mean, just anything and everything. And it's just one of those things where, I never would have thought a long time ago for a guy who just kind of found his hidden passion that it would just evolve into something like this. But I love what I do, and the sky's the limit for hopefully for what keeps happening.
Right. And I love to hear how you and other reporters were kind of a part of that early, blog content when it came to sports, and laying that foundation so that young guys like myself can get on and kind of follow in you guys' footsteps. So I want to thank you for that. And then secondly, I want to talk about how you mentioned the 2011 team. And honestly, for me, I was a Saints fan before the 2011 team, but that team, I said it last week, I feel like it gave me the black and gold in my blood. Like, that game was one of the best games, and also one of the worst endings for Saints fans. And honestly, I think that would have been a Super Bowl team. So I definitely agree with you. But now it's 2021. We're coming into this upcoming season, and last season's fans weren't able to fully pack out the Superdome. So I kind of want to ask you, we know the Superdome is going through some renovations. Do you know what fans can expect as the renovations continue to progress over the summer?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we get everybody back in full attendance. That's the main thing, because I tell everybody last year, first of all, I'll never get used to a quiet Superdome. I don't care if it's 3,000, and there were the loudest 3,000 and 6,000 fans that were out there, right? But, that's something I never got used to, and it was a shame that they weren't there, because I think they obviously could have swung the momentum and changed the complexity of the game, right? And so for this year, we got to see it, and it's part of a project they started in 2019. They got approved. It's a $450 million project, and so it's basically updating the Superdome. And the main thing that fans are going to be able to see this year, they're adding the 12 field level suites. It's going to hold like 20 to 24 people. It's going to bring a different experience there. And then obviously on the corners, some of the fans were impacted. Those are going to end up being standing room only type of settings. And, the way it was explained, and obviously I know that obviously some season ticket holders were affected by the move and such. And, definitely that's tough. And, but the team said obviously that they're working with those guys. They're not going to lose their season ticket holder status and things along that lines. But, as far as it goes, they're improving some of the lighting there in the concourses. They're adding some more ADA seating, and it's just going to be a different fan experience. And so, we joked at it on that day saying, I said it to Mike Triplett. I said, I'm going to put odds and bets that Kamara is going to be the first guy that jumps into the field suites with some of the teams, assuming what happens with COVID, because obviously that's going to affect some things. But, it's going to be a crazy renovation project. They're kind of in their phase 2 of it. Phase 3 is going to obviously widen the concourses. They're going to bring more escalators instead of the ramps and stuff. So, I mean, it's a massive project. And the biggest thing is they're trying to make this thing, it's not just for the Saints, but, concerts, it's for the Sugar Bowl, it's for National Championship, it's for the Super Bowl, it's for all these different things. So, it's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But if you looked at the dome and you saw some of the pictures, I mean, I'm going around there thinking, there's no way they're going to have this thing ready, right? But, right. But they said they're going to have it ready the week before the Saints play the preseason game. And so I expect that to be a pretty packed out affair right there. But they have an event going on before then, and so they're going to have it ready.
Right. And I know we're all excited to get back and see it. I mean, honestly, last year without the fans, without all the fans in the dome, it was an interesting experience, and the Saints were still able to do well, but it's nothing like being in a packed Superdome. I remember 2019 being in the first home game of the season against the Texans, and how electric that game was, and how I was hoarse. I started a new job like the day after, and my voice was hoarse the whole day. They thought something was wrong. They was like, okay, who did we hire? But let's get to this upcoming season, and let's talk about the football. So we're constantly seeing on social media Jameis Winston working out with the wide receiver group. He's building that chemistry that's definitely needed as we go into the season. But in your opinion, I want to ask, do you think Jameis Winston is the long-term goal for the New Orleans Saints at quarterback? And honestly, I want to ask you this on top of that. Do you think the concern should be with Jameis Winston, and more concern should be with the wide receiver group here in New Orleans?
Yeah, look, I think to answer kind of the first part is, look, I know the organization believes in Jameis Winston. I know that he's doing a lot of the right things. And, it's not fair that everybody continues to think that, hey, this Winston version for the Saints this year is going to be the 2019 version of the Bucks. And that's just not fair to Jameis. And when you look back and peel back the layers, it's almost unfounded. I mean, when you look at his 30 picks, 19 of them came in just 5 games, and those are all home games. It's kind of very perplexing. And so I know he's trying to do a little bit too much on some of those aspects. He's even said that, obviously. But look, I think that when you go into it, obviously I don't expect him to be handed the job. I think Taysom Hill it's going to give him a push. And honestly, I'm interested to see how Taysom Hill does as far as some of his improvements, right? And so it'll be an exciting time just because you get to see an actual quarterback battle in training camp, right? And actually have to have a training camp. So last year was not traditional by any sense. And so that's exciting in itself. And, I think when you say talking about the wide receiver group, look, Mike Thomas is destined for a bounce back season, but obviously they're still having some concerns, I guess, with the ankle and trying to make sure that they don't just throw him out there and stuff. So that obviously here. But really what I said, because I got asked this question yesterday about it. And so what I would say is just picture this. You're in the playoff game. It's the game's on the line. You don't have Mike Thomas. You're putting your faith in Traquan Smith or Marquez Callaway. Maybe it's Deontay Harris or the rookie Quan Baker. How do you feel about that when the game's on the line? And, it's one of those things where I know they believe a lot in this receiving core, right? And I think they have the talent. But, one of the things that I've always been one of my sticking points is one of the things that was missing was they didn't have a true number 2 wide receiver, something that dates back to that playoff game against the Vikings, the Minneapolis Miracle. That was really where I think it first got exposed, because they've always been able to find a way and do things. But look, this is a year also where this offense is going to evolve, I think, and Jameis is going to be able to push the ball down the field. Even if it's Taysom, he's going to be able to push the ball down the field and give the Saints a little bit of element that they just haven't had, because, coming into it last year, especially, Drew would go into the offense and talk with Sean and say, hey, look, here's the things I can do, here's the things I can't do. And they kind of tailored the offense around it. So I think it's going to be an interesting offense to be in. I'm looking forward to Jameis throwing the ball 70, 80 yards down the field. I'm looking forward to him going for more deep shots and be a little bit more aggressive. But, look, early stages, Jameis has got this for now. It remains to be seen what happens. But the wide receiving core, definitely more information is needed, but they're definitely a spot. They didn't have a free agent. They only drafted a rookie in the 7th round, and I don't think they even added the undrafted guys. So it's like they really do feel good about what they have. So maybe that could change, but there's not much out there that's going to really make a huge difference.
Right, and the reason I ask about the wide receiver group is because as we entered the draft, it was so many wide receivers. I mean, the pick of wide receivers out of the draft, you had the Saints had opportunities to grab, De'Ami Brown, Elijah. It was so many wide receivers that I love coming out of the draft. And the New Orleans Saints went with Quan Baker in the 7th round. So it shows that they have the trust in the unit. But what I want to ask you, just an additional question, is do you think the offense should be ran through Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray, or do you think Sean Payton will see the green light with Jameis and go back to the high-flying offense we're used to seeing?
Yeah, look, I obviously Alvin Kamara is a special guy, and it's I remember after 2019 when he got hurt in Jacksonville, everybody just started to throw all these things about him and being hurt and how he didn't want to be here, just all these crazy lazy takes that people bring out there. But he really had a killer year last year, and look, he's your best offensive player, and it's going to be hard not to feed the ball to him and get him involved in the offense. I think Latavius Murray's earned more touches too, just because of the element he brings to the table. And so, look, I'm excited about both of those prospects. But look, I'm envisioning a scenario where, look, Jameis Winston. Look, I looked into it. His last year in Tampa, he did over 600 attempts. Drew did it. I think it was 9 times that he was here in the Saints that he threw over 600 attempts. I'm not saying you're going to get 600 out of Jameis on a passing attempts, but I do see that Sean could very well say, hey, let's try to take the training wheels off. Let's throw some different disguises, some different looks. I think Jameis has looked really good. And he looked good when he got this thing. So, I mean, that's the thing, is he changed up his diet. He got LASIK. There's a lot of things that he did that were really good for his his image and his overall physical appearance and such. So I think he's moving extremely well. Hopefully he continues to do that. And so I expect them to be pretty aggressive, but I don't know if you'll get 600 attempts this year, but I definitely think that you'll get some deep looks, some good looks in the passing game with Jameis Winston this year.
Right. And the Saints have the weapons. I mean, Deontay Harris, like we talked about, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas. We like what Marquez Callaway is doing. But I want to ask you about the Saints team in general and the different talents that we have. What talent or who do you think will have a breakout season this year for the Saints?
Yeah, I think there's a few people that I look at. You just mentioned Marquez Callaway. I think obviously he's going to step up in a huge role this year. And so I think he's probably your wide receiver 3, right? And unless they do something different with Deontay Harris. So he's going to have a huge opportunity to get some looks, from an offensive side. Defensively, there's a couple of people I'd look at. I think Shai Tuttle's one of them, just because of the way they run on the interior line. They didn't bring back Malcolm Brown and Sheldon Rankins too. Or they traded away Malcolm Brown, but they didn't bring back Sheldon. And so there's a huge opportunity to play alongside David Onyemata. I think Tuttle's a guy that's going to rotate some with Malcolm Roach, and I'm really excited to see that. And then, from a linebacker perspective, I think we're hopefully banking on it being Zach Bond or Pete Werner. I mean, Warner's a rookie, so I don't know if you say a breakout season, but hopefully Bond puts everything together. I've heard a lot of good things about Chase Hansen. That's a potential guy to keep a look at, but we'll have to see, because that linebacking core is really the area that you want to. That if you ask me right now, where it scares me on the defensive side, that's the area of the linebacker, because DeMario is going to hold his own. He's going to play great, and the guy opposite of him is really where your concern is. And so I don't know if they'll end up getting Quan Alexander back. That's something that remains to be seen. That would be the best case scenario probably for this team if they can do that, pull it off. But look, the Saints don't play a traditional 4-3 defense. They play a lot of nickel, and so you can't really keep CJ Gardner-Johnson off the field just because of the way he plays. So, look, I think between that, it'd probably be Tuttle and Callaway. And look, I look for really good things out of Cesar Ruiz. I think he's really going to hold his own this year and show everybody why he was a first-round pick too.
Right. And I'm excited for Deontay Harris. And I do believe that Pete Werner, him being a rookie, we'll see how he, transitions as a linebacker at the NFL level. I'm excited to see his progression. And I've heard a lot of people, and I've talked about it. I've watched his highlights. I think Kawan Baker could make the team, could make the offense and make a spark just as a versatile wide receiver that the New Orleans Saints offense could use. But we'll see. Hopefully the Saints, find an answer at the number 2 corner position. Hopefully, something happens, because the loss of Janoris Jenkins was I think the biggest loss for the New Orleans Saints. But let's kind of talk about the news from last week. Drew Brees' retirement was officially announced. We all knew it was coming. And it's been a long 15 years. We've had a lot of very, very high moments, but we've had some sad moments as Saints fans. But let's talk about the good, and let's talk about Drew Brees. And I want to ask you, what's your favorite, if you could pick one, what's your favorite moment covering the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees?
Man, one is tough. Obviously it was good seeing him do against Washington, but I'll tell you, this is my favorite moment of Drew. It was the game against Washington. It was a regular season game. It wasn't the Monday Night Football game. It was the one where they came back with like 7 minutes to go. I mean, Drew just hit another level, and it was 2017 because everybody was a rookie. Yeah, I remember. I had to think about it for just a quick second, but they were getting beat up. I think Jeremy Sprinkle had the go-ahead touchdown in like 4th, and it just like, how are we losing to this Washington team? And it's like Junior Gallette's going to really get the last laugh, all this type of stuff, and here comes Drew, just pilot a drive. The defense gets a stop, and it gets everything going. He throws the touchdown to Kamara. They get the 2-point conversion. They win in overtime. I mean, that had to be one of my favorite games, just overall with Drew, just because of that epitomized what happened. And he finally had somebody that's like, okay, because in the past, you would always see Drew make those comebacks and they give it away defensively, right? And stuff would just happen. And so, but that was one of my favorite moments, I guess. And then as far as another one, man, seeing him connect with Traquan Smith and making those records, I mean, those were always magic moments that that ended up happening. The one against Washington, the game where he played against the Colts, where he was almost perfect. I mean, there's just so many different ones. It's so hard to pick just one, because especially all time, maybe it's the one where he connected with Sproles against the Falcons and, on that Monday Night Football game. But, there's just so many of them that Drew. I really think you could honestly put like a March Madness bracket together and then try to get all of them together. But, look, there's so many good ones I've had of Drew Brees and covering him. I mean, he's a guy that's going to be missed, but at the same time, I feel like it's almost exciting to see what's going to happen here. And, as far as the future goes, it's kind of exciting not knowing what's going to happen.
And that's the truth. Going back to that Washington game from 2017, that was the game, and I was texting my friends, and I'm from Virginia, so everyone's like a Redskins fan, and I'm like, man, they're texting me, man, you guys are hurting, man, they're laughing at this point, and then we come back, and that was the first game where I realized, okay, Alvin Kamara is something special. He's gonna be a great player. That was like the first game where I was like, okay, the first couple of games I was like, oh, he's nice. He's had some plays, but that was the first game where I was like, he's going to be a special running back for the New Orleans Saints. So that's what I'll always remember about that game. I'm excited to see what happens as we get into a new era. I mean, last season, I was almost excited for, Taysom starting because it was like a new era. I had like a fresh sigh of relief that there's going to be something new in New Orleans. And I'm excited to see it in this upcoming season, whether it be Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, Ian Book, whoever it is. I'm excited to see what Sean Payton can do in this new era. But I want to thank you, John, for coming on the show today. I know you're busy. I know it's a lot going on right now, but I thank you for taking time out of your day to come on and talk to us about Saints news.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me, man. It's always good to chat with people and talk and stuff. So look, man, I wish you the best, and don't be a stranger on social media, man. If something comes up, just let me know, and I'll find time.
Right. And y'all be sure to check out John's work at the Saints News Network, affiliated with Sports Illustrated. You guys check it out. Check out his work. He makes great content. But thank you guys for listening today. Stay safe. Have a great day. Peace.